Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I want to thank everybody for the birthday wishes. Today's June 7th, 2017. Thank everybody for the birthday wishes. Got a lot of birthday wishes on my personal Facebook page, Michael Imhotep. So thanks for that. Something's like over 200 of them. So today's been a busy day. I'm getting ready to do my segment on Steve Hood's radio show, the morning show on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Wake up with Steve Hood. So I've been busy getting ready for that. I did a broadcast earlier today because I was getting ready to go see my daughter, and for some reason I did a broadcast earlier today. I was in the car and I said thanks for the birthday wishes. I also talked about Bill Maher last Friday using the term house nigger on his TV show. We talked about some other things. For some reason, the audio didn't come through on that video, so I don't know what was going on there. But once again, thanks for the birthday wishes. I'm 46 today, and let me share this on my personal page also. But tomorrow I do my segment. I'm on every Thursday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the morning show on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Wake up with Steve Hood. Okay, but so we may talk about Bill Maher today. I haven't had a chance this past Sunday. I don't think we talked about it on my show, the African History Network show, which comes on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't think we talked about it. Then. We may talk about it this Sunday. But so now you have Ice Cube who's going to do his show. You have Dr. Michael Eric Dyson who's going to do his show. And you have, I read a social media post from Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. Didn't really make sense. He has some African Americans defending him using that term, which is ridiculous. I don't even understand that. And, you know, we really need a real history lesson because we're the only people who you can use derogatory terms like that in our music, especially in mainstream hip hop. You can't put out music calling other ethnic groups derogatory terms, racial epithets, things like that. Racial epithets for white people, Hispanics, Jews, things like that. You can't put out music using racial slurs for other groups. You can't put out music now calling the LGBT community really derogatory terms. Okay, the record companies for the most part won't let you put that out, and it definitely won't be played on the radio. So what? So how is it that African Americans are the only people who you can put, who you can make songs and put out negative and say negative racial slurs, use the N word, dehumanize their women, things like this. How is it that African Americans are the only ones you can put this type of information out about? Okay, and what this does is this shapes the way people think, feel, act, and behave towards you. So this causes people to say, well, we need longer, harsher prison sentences. We need tougher laws because we have to get tough on these people. Okay, when you see images every night on the evening news of African Americans committing crimes, okay, this reinforces these stereotypes. When you put out music like this reinforces these stereotypes. And this is what people are not understanding. We have to look at this holistically and understand this comes out of white supremacy. And the dehumanization of African people has always been entertainment for Europeans, basically going back to the beginning of this country. Now, yes, African people, we were here for tens of thousands of years before Europeans got here, before Native Americans came into existence. And you've seen some of my previous presentations. You know, I cite the work from Dr. David Imhotep and others. He wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. But if you go back and you look at things like the minstrel shows, the minstrel shows were at one point the most popular form of entertainment in this country. Minstrel shows go back to 1828, 1829, where you have this white vaudeville type entertainer named T.D. Rice, W-R-I-C-E, Thomas Dartmouth Rice, also known as Thomas Daddy Rice. And he creates this Jim Crow character. And according to the story, according to the myth, he sees a slave boy or slave male attending to animals, and the slave male is singing the Jim Crow song, and he says, "Turn around, I jump around, I jump just so. Every time I turn around, I jump Jim Crow." So according to the story, T.D. Rice sees this. Then he creates this Jim Crow character on stage. He wears tattered, torn clothes. He puts on blackface. He adopts a Southern dialect that's supposed to be imitating African people, African Americans. And he creates this Jim Crow character. Well, white people love it because white people, yeah, oftentimes Europeans like to see African Americans lampooned, made fools of. Okay, this is one of the reasons why so many white people like hip hop, because it lampoons African Americans. It shows them as being criminals. It dehumanizes their women. It shows their women being half naked. Things like this. It's like going on a safari for a lot of them. This is why they like this. Okay, if you go back and research Bobby Shmurda, Bobby Shmurda had a song called "Hot N-Word," right? Hot nigga. Okay. They won't put out. We're the only people who you could put out music like that about. The record companies won't let you. However bad these rappers think they are, they can't put out a CD or a song with racial epithets of white people in the title, or Jews or Hispanics, things like this. They won't let them do it. All right, thanks guys for the birthday wishes. Corian, Vivian. Yeah, today's my birthday. Valerie. Okay, so what happens is that they're using the music to help destroy African American youth. Now, I'm not against hip hop. I'm against negative hip hop. I'm against BS hip hop. Okay. And we have to hold the record companies accountable, these conglomerates. This is why we have to redistribute the pain to them through economic withdrawal strategies and leverage the dollars that we use, that we spend with them in their other entities that they own, and focus on possibly withdrawing economic support from them, and then also look at where we have our mutual funds invested. Because a lot of our mutual funds, a portion of our mutual fund dollars are invested in entertainment companies that put out negative hip hop. We have to look at where our pension dollars are invested. Some of our pension dollars are invested in companies that put out negative hip hop, like Universal. Okay, because Comcast owns Universal. All right, so you know, when I travel, I listen to Slacker Radio a lot. I have the Slacker Radio app on my smartphones. So I listen to Slacker Radio, and I listen to the day's hits on Slacker Radio. So most of the songs are by white people, white artists. It's like top 40. And you'll have a few African American artists who cross over. So it's a Drake, Nicki Minaj, Flo Rida, Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, The Weeknd, things like this. You have a few African American artists that cross over. Majority of it is white artists. You hear very little cursing, very little references to drugs, very little references to violence. They're not talking about doing drive-bys and killing and shooting and all this. They're not talking about dehumanizing their women, disrespecting their women, calling their women out of their names. They're not doing this in white music for the most part. You have exceptions here and there, but for the most part, you listen to it, it's entirely different. Now, some people may say, well, it's because, you know, white people, you know, aren't, you know, they're not dealing with the conditions we're dealing with in the hood. There are more poor white people in America than there are poor African Americans. There are more poor white people in America than there are poor black people in America. They say, well, we deal with gangs in our communities. Well, wait a second. If you actually go study from 1980 to 2008, and if you read an article from AtlantaBlackStar.com called that deals with 9 facts about white on white violence that far exceed black on black violence. Okay, if you go read that, number 7 deals with how gang violence from 1980 to 2008 was worse in the white community than it was in the African American community. They talk about how 53% of the perpetrators of gang violence murders were white. 53% of the people who committed gang violence murders were white. And it's something like 56% of the victims of gang violence murder were white from 1980 to 2008. So it's not because they don't have violence in their community. It's not because they don't have gangs in their community. It's not because they don't have drugs in their community. Because every time you turn on the news, you read about some white person that overdosed on heroin all across the country. They're getting addicted to opioids, overdosing on heroin, using heroin. Ohio, Maine, Wisconsin, West Virginia, all across the country, you see this. So it's not because drugs are not in their community. It's not because they don't use drugs. It's they come into our community and buy drugs. Metro Times, which is a Detroit publication, Metro Times had an article a few years ago dealing with sex, money, and drugs. It was dealing with who's buying drugs and prostitutes in Detroit. And they talk about how oftentimes when there are raids done, when police impound cars, a lot of those cars are from people who live out in the suburbs. They don't live in Detroit. There's a lot of white people who come to Detroit to buy drugs. Then something happens, and then Detroit gets the black eye. Oh, this is Detroit. They're so violent, blah, blah, blah. Well, wait a second. Why are you coming here buying drugs? Why don't you buy drugs out in your own white community? So you have to ask yourself, well, what are African Americans being set up for if we're the only ones you can put out negative music about and have racial slurs in it and dehumanize their women? You know, if you turn on MTV and watch music videos on MTV, their music videos are totally different than ours. They don't have a lot of half-naked women in their music videos shaking their behinds with implants and things like this. You have some here and there. You see a whole lot less tattoos in their music videos also. You know what police call tattoos? Distinguishing marks. Those are distinguishing marks. This is an easy way for your ass to get caught. Tattoos all over your face. Tattoos all over your body. All over. He had an ice cream cone tattooed on his cheek. Oh yeah, we know who that is. So when you start seeing this, and then you see a Bill Maher use use a racial slur for himself. I don't know why he thought that was a joke. I don't know why he thought that would be funny. So then you have to ask yourself, well, we're the only ones you can say racial slurs about in music, on TV, all through the movies. Even when you watch white movies, they don't have racial slurs about themselves. So what are we being set up for? Because power is the ability to define and shape reality and have reality accept and have other people accept your definition of reality as if it were their own. Power is the ability to define and shape reality and to have other people accept your definition of reality as if it were their own. So if you can strip a people of their culture and their history, you can reshape them to be what you want them to be as opposed to what they originally were. So you can convince them that they are N-words and they'll put it in their music, and then you let them put that music out. Because let's make it clear. You know, I was on a panel discussion about 3 or 4 weekends ago here in Detroit, and it was dealing with the negative, the mental effects of negative hip hop. Okay, he was dealing with, and it's a initiative, Clear the Airwaves, and it's an initiative to clear the airwaves of negative hip hop. Okay, with the other thing is when I listen to white music, they don't have all the sexually suggestive lyrics also in white music. You may hear some here and one here, one there, but in negative hip hop, it's all throughout the music. When I listen to white artists, you're hearing more about marriage, love, relationships, a lot less about promiscuity. Okay, it happens some. Even when you listen to R&B, with R&B, you're more likely to hear about love, relationships, marriage, things like this in R&B music. Very little in hip hop. Very little in hip hop. Hip hop is more about promiscuity, having sex with multiple women, having sex with women you're not married to, things like this. Finding your next baby's mama. Okay, this is negative hip hop. Okay. Now, majority of the fault does not lie on the artist. It lies on the record company, because the record company, the suits, the corporations, they set the standards for what's going to be tolerated. They set the standards for what's going to be tolerated. So if you listen to Slacker Radio or Pandora, and listen to I've used Pandora before. I don't know if they have like today's hits on there, but listen to today's hits. That plays like the latest top 40 music, right? Listen to that music and listen to the subject matter of white music. Then listen to the subject matter of hip hop. It's not that they don't have crime in their communities. It's not that they don't have gangs. They have gangs in their communities. White people have gangs in their communities. They have drugs in their community, all that. There are more poor white people in America than African Americans. So you have to ask the question, how is it that we're the only ones you can put out negative music about? And this ties into mass incarceration, the war on drugs, and vilifying and criminalizing African Americans, especially African American males, which comes out of white supremacy and racism. And, when I was on the panel discussion about a month ago, dealing with mental effects of negative hip hop, you had somebody there that said, oh, it's an FCC issue. You're not going to be able to change the FCC. It's an FCC issue. No, it's not an FCC issue. It's a white supremacy issue. It's not an FCC issue. It's a white supremacy issue. Because when you turn on the radio, and like here in Detroit, I listen to some of the white radio stations, some of the like top 40 radio stations, 96.3, 95.5. I listen to some of the FM. I listen to some of the white radio stations. The subject matter of their music is entirely different. They're not talking about killing, not talking about guns, very, very little references to drugs. They're not dehumanizing women, things like this. Okay, so if it's an FCC issue, then you would have to concede that the same FCC regulations, Federal Communications Commission, they regulate the airwaves. They regulate TV, regulate radio, regulate what can be said, things like this, right? If it's an FCC issue, then you have to concede that the same FCC regulations that apply to African American artists apply to white artists. The same FCC regulations. They don't have a different set of FCC regulations for us than they do for white artists. Okay? So if that's the case, where is the negative dehumanizing music from white artists, and why don't they play it on the radio stations? Where is that music, and why isn't it played on the radio stations, but you can play that music from African Americans on the radio station? It's not an FCC issue. The reason why is, for the most part, the record companies are not making that type of music because they value their children, and they're not going to have white artists make that type of music for white children because they know it would destroy their children. So they care about their children. They don't care about our children. This is why they'll use African American artists to put out negative music to help destroy our children. This is why. It's not an FCC issue, it's a white supremacy issue. This is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with white supremacy and racism. And racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race that comes out of the ideology of white supremacy. This is what you're dealing with. You can, and I wrote an article, and then we got to wrap up. I got to get ready to do the, I have to do this show in the morning. I have to be at the radio station at 7 a.m. And I have to drive to the radio station. You know, I write articles, so I wrote an article. There was one article I wrote dealing with how you can make songs about killing African Americans, but you cannot make songs about killing animals. You can't make songs about killing dogs. You can't make songs about killing cats. You can't make songs about dog fights for the most part. PETA be all over you. Record companies won't make it. But you can make songs about killing African Americans. So what you're saying is that animals get more respect than black people when it comes to making music. What you're saying is that animals get more respect than black people when it comes to making music. I wrote an article. You can read, go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can read all my articles there. I wrote an article March 28, 2016. Pastor says radio won't play songs about killing animals, but play songs about killing black people. This was a white pastor named Michael T. Smith, also known as White Mike. And he talked about how it's perfectly acceptable to make songs about killing African Americans, but you won't find music in any large scale being made talking about killing members of other ethnic groups, other races, but also killing animals. They ain't going to do that. And if you remember back in 1995, Michael Jackson, I think it was 95, Michael Jackson had the song, They Don't Really Care About Us. And then the song, he said, Jew me, sue me, kike me, blah, 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 right? Okay. Now, Mike didn't mean anything negative about it, to the Jewish community. He was just talking about the mistreatment towards him. Okay. Well, I think his record company at the time was Sony. The Jewish community, the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, put pressure on Sony. They pulled that CD off the shelf all across the country. Pulled that CD off the shelf all across the country and removed those lyrics out, then put it back on the shelf. It's not because the song was not about anti-Semitism. It was 2 or 3 lyrics in the song that they said was about anti-Semitism. It wasn't a whole CD that had that language in it. It had that language in it. It wasn't all throughout the song. It was 2 or 3 lines. And they took it out. So there's one standard of decency for one group of people and no standard of decency when it comes to our music. And see, your thoughts create feelings. Your feelings create actions and behaviors. Your actions and behaviors create results. Your thought, what you read, see, and hear affects the way you think, feel, act, and behave. So we have to understand that we are under attack by negative hip hop. Not all hip hop is negative. Let's be clear. Not all hip hop is negative. But a lot of this BS is being played on the radio. Yeah, so this is why we got to focus on economic withdrawal strategies targeted at these conglomerates that make the music, because you have to cut it off at the source. We can call radio stations. Now, if you want to go after the radio stations, this is how you go after the radio stations. You go after their advertisers. If you look at what's happening with Breitbart News right now, Breitbart News is losing a lot of advertisers. Okay? If you look at Bill O'Reilly, who got fired from Fox News a few weeks ago, after the New York Times revealed that Fox News and Bill O'Reilly had to pay out $13 million to settle 5 sexual harassment lawsuits The reason why Bill O'Reilly was off the air was not because of those lawsuits. It's because about 80 advertisers, about 80 companies pulled their ads from his show. They removed their ads from his show. The show was no longer profitable. This was the #1 cable news network television show for the past 15 years. One of the organizations at the forefront of getting Bill O'Reilly off the air was colorchange.org, African American organization, Color Change. And they've had a 2-year campaign against the Bill O'Reilly show, The O'Reilly Factor, on Fox News. Fox News is a white supremacist propaganda news outlet. This is why we have to understand media. Malcolm X said the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the ability to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, and that's power because they control the minds of the masses. He said the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the ability to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, and that's power because they control the minds of the masses. And he's absolutely correct. So they put economic pressure on the advertisers, and they and other organizations were able to get the advertisers to pull ads from the O'Reilly Factor. It was no longer profitable, and they took the show off the air. Okay? And this is what, if you want to go after the radio stations that play the negative hip hop, this is what you have to do. You have to go after their advertisers. Okay? See, all the marching and things like that, marching has its purpose. Mass protest has its purpose. I'm not against mass protest as long as it's part of an overall plan. But marching is not a plan. This is the mistake that a lot of people make. See, a lot of us suffer from March Madness. I'm not talking about NCAA March Madness, where you sit up there and waste a lot of time watching African American college players being exploited during the month of March for white institutions. I'm not talking about that March Madness, the basketball. I'm talking about March Madness. We get mad and we want to march. See, many African Americans suffer from March Madness. We get mad and we want to march. Marching is a tactic, but it's not a plan. Mass mobilization draws attention to the problem. It gets media attention. It allows you to inform people about the problem, allows you to incorporate people into your organization, into your strategy, to your overall plan. But marching is not the plan. See, Dr. King in his last speech, April 3rd, 1968, I've been to the mountaintop. Also, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. Dr. King in his last speech, I've been to the mountaintop, April 3rd, 1968. He said that we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. He said that we have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. So what this means is that when you have mass protests, you have to have economic boycotts, targeted, sustained economic boycotts to go along with the mass protest, to put pressure, to put economic pressure on the entity or whatever it is that you're trying to push your agenda to change the conditions. And this is the mistake that a lot of people make. This is one of the mistakes that Black Lives Matter is making. I like some of the things they're doing, but they don't have a lot of economic boycotts. They're not dealing a lot with economic withdrawal strategies, and this is a mistake. Okay. All right. So, hey, Friday night, I teach online classes. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. You can register. We did a class Monday also. I had some additional information. Couldn't get to all of it last Friday, so we did another class Monday. We just posted a link. You can register for the class. It's $10 for the class I did last Friday and Monday. You get both of them, or $40 for the entire course. It's a 6-week, 12-hour online course All the sessions are recorded. You don't have to be there live for it. All the sessions are recorded. You can watch it anytime. We deal with thousands of years of history. We deal with the African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, how the Moors set up Columbus sitting on his 4 voyages, and how Columbus helped lay the foundation for slavery, racism, capitalism, and exploitation of indigenous people. And you have to, we deal with it chronologically. You have to understand history chronologically to understand the transatlantic slave trade, okay? All right, so we just posted the link there. And then also you can go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, register for that. As soon as you register, you can start watching classes. You can start watching last Friday's class and the class you just did Monday. And we also have about 10 hours of bonus content there as well, okay? All right. Listen to me on every Thursday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Wake up with Steve Hood, 9, 10 a.m. The Superstation. The Voice of Detroit, I'm on the morning show every Thursday. And then I do my show every Sunday, 9, 10 a.m. The Superstation, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the African History Network show. All right, Daryl, thanks for the birthday wishes. Everybody, thanks for the birthday wishes. If you go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, have the information on the show. You can listen to my audio podcast, read my articles, order my DVD lectures as well. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. All right, got to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.